being transferred in prison was both a celebratory moment because I'd be going to a lower level in this case, and a moment full of anxiety for obvious reasons. Celebratory, more freedom, lower levels. I had a better mindset, the mindset that I wanted to go home, and this would be my second chance at being on a level 2. The first time didn't work out. I got ran all the way back up to a level 4. This time I wanted to go home. I was going to move different. I was going to take opportunities to get into programs, etc., and get ready to get out the door because I was in single digits. I still had about 7 years left on my bid, but I could see daylight now. I was on that downhill motion, if you know what I'm saying. But there was anxiety attached to it because I was still trying to separate from this car that I was attached to, this organization, this gang, this clique, etc. And again, not because I didn't love my brothers, but simply because it just didn't fit in with my way of life, how I wanted to live, how I envisioned my future. And I just remember that day, talking to different people, getting ready to get transferred. Word had spread. Some people asking me to, hey, send word to my brother if you go to such and such, because they don't tell you where you're going, but you are allowed to pick 3 places. They don't tell you where you're going because they don't want your family member to pull up with a van and break you out, and try to get you to escape. But when brothers know what you put in for options, they try to send word to their people. There's always those awkward moments where some brothers ask for your information, like they're going to keep in touch, when it was a lot of times just people going through motion. And then I remember the moment where I was talking to my brothers, part of the organization. They're like, yeah, make sure when you get to such and such, you check in. And I just remember growing up in there, and the older I get in that time, or got in that time, just thinking to myself, what do I look like checking in? Like, what do I look like going home and being a husband to my wife and telling my wife, hey, babe, I would love to take you out to dinner tonight, but I got to go check in. It just didn't fit with where I was going. It didn't sit well. And I probably should have said right there to them, look, man, I'm about to part ways with this thing. But there's 2 things going on. If I said that right then, the violation could have been worse than just physical. You know what I'm saying? They possibly could have tried to take me up off there because the environment was more serious, and some of them brothers were never going home. And when you say you're leaving their car, that's like you're leaving their family. And they don't look at you just going to do things positive all the time as the reason. They may look at you like you're going to betray them, maybe join another car, etc. I don't know. I just knew that in my heart, that wasn't the moment that I needed to announce that I was going to be separating myself from the organization. So the anxiety also came with knowing that even though I was going to a level 2, it would be all new faces, new politics, man, new everything. People that didn't know me, and I would have to restart in a lot of ways. And I was going to separate myself from the organization there. It's kind of weird because looking back, right, Greensville was far more hostile, right, as a level 3 than the level 2 that I would go to. But the twisted part of my mind was I was more comfortable with staying on a level 3 where it was more hostile because I knew the dangers that existed there. I had time to learn and kind of pay attention, almost to the point that I could predict what was going on in there. Of course, you can't do that, but you pay attention to the patterns. This new environment, I'd be green in there. I'd have to really be paying attention again and know that I have to build the foundation from the ground up. And a lot of my support was going to be taken away when I got to this next camp because, again, I was going to leave that organization. Man, the day came, and early that morning, they pack you up, they handcuff you, wrists to waist, waist to ankles. They put the box on your wrists. You're wearing a jumper. Hopefully you've used the restroom, because if you have to on the way there, they're not going to stop and pull over because you're locked into the back of the van. They cannot access you. And that was it. They locked us in after we ate the most miserable bag lunch of a breakfast. And we're on our way. We're on our way to Powhatan Correctional Center, to the bullpen. The bullpen is basically the changeover where all the buses meet. And you'll see people you haven't seen for years. That's what's crazy. You might have left them 10 years ago on Sussex 2, and then you're going to see them at the bullpen getting transferred to another institution. That's the only time you're going to see them for 30 seconds while you passing by, while they getting on a new bus and you getting on a new bus. But when I got there, that's when I found out I was going to St. Bride's Correctional Center. And I was excited. I ain't gonna lie. I was excited because I was like, I had heard like it was jumping. It was in the middle of Tidewater, but I also knew it could be dangerous because even though it was a level 2, they called it gangland. So here we go. Pull up to St. Bride's. go through in processing, get my stuff, get my laundry, all that stuff. And man, for this to be a level 2, it was turned up. And I'm going to tell you why. On a level 4, level 3 in Virginia, honestly, and somebody could say something different in the comments. Maybe their experience was different. Obviously, state to state is different. In Virginia, nobody had checked me for paperwork or asked what I was a part of, etc. When I got to that level 2, man, within like 3 minutes of me being in that dorm, them young boys, they pulled up on me and said, hey, OG, what are you a part of? No, back to time, big bro. Big bro, what you bang? Who you with? Da, da, da. And you got to answer that, because if you duck that question, they're going to do homework and find out who you with anyways, and it's going to be an issue. You might as well just announce that. And when they asked me, I announced it. And I'm thinking, just like anywhere else I had been, when I announced what I'm a part of, I'm good. But let me tell you something about politics and how dangerous it is when you're part of these organizations and you don't know who's at the top. Sometimes things go left and right. And what happened with this situation is, and because communication is sometimes limited between prisons, etc., the organization that I was a part of, for lack of better words, had become now defunct. It no longer was a real organization, etc. So it was now being targeted by a bunch of different organizations behind those prison walls, because the individual that said that it was supposed to be in that state, out there operating, etc., they never had permission. And when it comes to that way of life, you got to have green light, etc., permission to do things and move certain sets, etc., to different states. So, man, I got to a level 2. I had already been ready to announce that I was over with this, done with this stuff. And now, like 3 minutes being on the compound or in this new dorm, I was being rushed, checked, and told that what I was a part of, it wasn't even real anyways. It was about to get real.